Hello again, this is part 2 of my Paris trip video series. Let's talk about our day 1. So we land in Paris, got out of the airport and we went to the train station to take the metro. But here is where the first disaster happened. There were queues to all these ticket vending machines and we thought that should work. But later we asked a couple of people around who seemed to be equally confused. And then we saw a set of counters where tickets were dispensed by humans, and somehow we ended up standing in that long queue. And we waited for, I think, more than an hour, which felt like a criminal waste of time because we had planned a lot of activities for our day 1 itself. So that brings me to this point. If you can take your first day easy, a bit relaxed, if you can afford to do that, I strongly suggest you do, so that there is room for some mistakes and the initial disorientation and so on. So we managed to get this Navigo card from the counter and we managed to find our platform, to get into the train, to go to our hotel. You don't have to wait in those long queues to get your hands on the Navigo card. You can buy one of those one-time journey tickets as well, because these cards are available in any metro station, which means you can quickly get to one of those ticket vending machines, get your one-time ticket and then collect the Navigo card in any of the metro stations inside the city later when you have more time. And the train went through the suburbs of Paris. Sometimes we could get some nice views when the train was not underground. And then we deboard at our station. We climb up the stairs. Just when we were trying to gather our senses, even before we could take our phones out and check where the hotel is on our Google Maps, a very kind old lady voluntarily helped us. We thanked her profusely. Again, reminding ourselves that stereotypes are just stereotypes, there are all kinds of people everywhere. And then we check into our hotel, which is a very old building with no elevator. So we had to lift our luggage to the 4th floor and we saw how cozy and small our room was, and we had this pretty nice view from our window. The first thing we wanted to see was the Pantheon. So we got out of our hotel and thanks to Google Maps, which worked flawlessly during the entire trip, we went to the nearby metro station, took the metro, and we had to deboard at Hotel de Ville. When we came out of the metro station, we literally gasped because there was a view that we weren't prepared for, a monument that we had not planned to see. This is what you can call the town hall of Paris, and the scale of it was stunning. It's so beautiful. We somehow managed to spend about 5 to 10 minutes there taking some pictures and just taking the view in. Then we told ourselves that we will come back more for this beautiful building and started walking towards the Pantheon. Of course, you could just close your eyes and take pictures and everything would still look pretty. That's how pretty that part of Paris is. So we had booked our tickets to enter the Pantheon at 3 p.m., which means we had very little time. So we pretty much ran all the way, and the first view we got of the Pantheon was a side view. The walk was pretty uphill, and then we hit the square and we saw just how gorgeous and how big the Pantheon is. Unfortunately, we didn't have much time to just soak in the view, the beauty of the entrance. So we had to find how we could enter the Pantheon, and luckily for us, because we had booked our tickets online while we were in Bengaluru, we didn't have to wait in a queue. We show them our online tickets and we are inside the Pantheon. The scale of it is dizzying. The domes are so high, the ceiling is so high, it is so spacious, it's like a little cosmos in itself. And then we move on to see the Foucault pendulum, a copy of it with a huge mirror on the floor reflecting the dome. That felt like a well, it felt like you could just trip over and fall into the well of beauty, if you may. There is a lot of information about the history and facts about the Pantheon, so I'm not going to talk about them. Victor Hugo rests there, Rousseau rests there, the politician Simone Weil rests there, and the great Josephine Baker rests there, and the one that I was most looking forward to was the tomb of Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. I'm very sorry, French people, about my pronunciation. I guess my love for him will sort of make up for the bad pronunciation. The fact that Antoine's dead body was never found, which makes the whole experience even more emotional. The Little Prince is perhaps every reader's go-to book. It's one of those eternal books. Just looking at the wall was a very moving experience for me. Of course, the view of these beautiful sculptures and all the paintings and the paintings of inside the dome were all just way too precious. As much more time as we wanted to spend inside the Pantheon, we knew that we were running late for our next stop, which was the Eiffel Tower. So we had booked the 5 p.m. slot for us to get on top of the Eiffel Tower, which means we had to rush. So we got out of the Pantheon and we started walking down the road, and the whole time we were just looking back because the view was spectacular. If we had the luxury of time, we would have picked one of those cafes or restaurants to have our lunch looking at the Pantheon the whole time, but we couldn't. However, we were grateful for the view we had. And then we found the nearest metro station and took the train to Eiffel Tower. We deboarded and we are running out of the metro station and running all the way to the Eiffel Tower. And there it was, the Eiffel Tower, which was only a few yards away. We realized that a part of the base was covered because some renovation was happening. But as we walked through the base, we just stood there for a second or two, just looking at the epicenter of the tower. Of course, it was crowded, and of course, we were a part of it. And we got into the elevator. We went all the way up to the second floor. The way in which you want to see the monument you're very fond of depends on your priorities, right? So your Paris will never be my Paris, and that's the beauty of it. My husband and I decided we will not be going to the topmost floor of the Eiffel Tower. From the second floor itself, the view was spectacular. From there, you could still figure out what is what. So we decided that going all the way up would not only consume more time, which we were anyway running out of, but also it would become way too small, like everything that you could see from there. Of course, this is a very personal choice we made. If you have the luxury of time, of course, you can see all the floors and enjoy the views from each one of them. So we descended the Eiffel Tower and we realized that we had just enough time to get to Arc de Triomphe, which was both a bus ride and a metro ride away. When we got into the bus, we still had a spectacular view of the Eiffel Tower. We got to the metro station, and just before deboarding at our destination, we could get another view of the Eiffel Tower. So we got out of the metro station, and the first view of Arc de Triomphe was unbelievable. I mean, we have seen so many pictures of it, so many videos of it, but the sheer scale of that monument is breathtaking. And again, in our hurry and confusion, we didn't know how to get there. It's right in front of our eyes, but we realized that we had to take a subway walk. Somehow we managed to find it and ran all the way again. When we were at the base of Arc de Triomphe, we just couldn't believe it. It's so huge and so beautiful. So again, because we had booked all these tickets beforehand while we were in Bengaluru, we didn't have to stand and wait in the queue. We just got in. By the way, Arc de Triomphe does have an elevator, but it is reserved for people who are physically challenged and pregnant women. So I'm afraid you will have to take the spiral staircase, which is nice. And then you go to the terrace, the top of Arc de Triomphe, from where you have a spectacular 360-degree view of Paris, which includes the Eiffel Tower. Another reason we did not want to spend a lot of time on the Eiffel Tower is because we wanted the Eiffel Tower in the view. It is such an iconic monument in the Parisian city landscape that not having it in the view was a bit weird. And because this was the last monument we had planned for the day, we finally were able to relax a little bit. Our feet were throbbing from all the running and walking and standing. So we were on the terrace way before sunset, during the sunset, and after the sunset. We were fortunate to see the city come alive differently after sunset. You can see the streets being lit up, the restaurants, the cafes being lit up, and slowly the Eiffel Tower was lit up. I'll have to confess something here. It's an unpopular opinion and I might get a lot of flack for it. The Eiffel Tower is not exactly my first favorite monument in Paris. I like these structures that are made out of stone. However, when the Eiffel Tower was lit up, and that was the first time I saw that in the flesh, I must say it was very moving, because it's such a part of our desire to travel in general, right? The Eiffel Tower, and I pretty much squealed in joy. So yeah, that was a pretty humbling, joyful experience. Also, we saw Sacré-Cœur from Arc de Triomphe, and the light on Sacré-Cœur was such that it felt like it had a halo. So that was an experience that I remember very fondly. When we got down, we had time to go around Arc de Triomphe, looking at the group of sculptures there. It's just mind-boggling, right, how the sculptors managed to carve not only human figures but also the emotions on the face. The way Arc de Triomphe rose against the night sky was dizzyingly spectacular. So that was the experience of Arc de Triomphe. When we were heading back, the nightlife in Paris was in full swing. We saw a lot of street performers, enjoyed some dances, and we saw the fabled Parisian cafes. What struck me the most was that Paris was bathed in the glorious soft amber light. You don't see those harsh white lights, which pretty much bleach the view. So just to see the streets and restaurants and cafes and bars and everything in these sallow lights is so moody and so rich somehow, That's one of my favorite things about the city, the amber light in the evenings. And then it was time to get to the nearest metro station to head towards our hotel. So the neighborhood in which we stayed in was a multi-ethnicity kind of a place. So that meant a more diverse culinary options to choose from. However, we got a bit unlucky because we ordered vegetarian steak and ended up getting chicken steak on our table, because when we said no meat, they assumed no pork, no lamb, no beef. So I guess when you're ordering, it's better to say no meat, no chicken, which means you'll end up getting vegetarian food on your table. So we had our dinner, had some wine, of course. We were in Paris. So we realized we had an incredibly rewarding day one in Paris. Of course, we made some mistakes, but they were not grave ones, mistakes that we could live with. And when we reached the hotel, looking forward to our day two, we were also happy to rest, just throw ourselves onto the bed as well. So I hope this video was useful in any way at all, and I cannot wait to tell you the story of our day two in Paris. Until then, take care. Bye. I realized that I hadn't covered 3 points in my first video, so I'm just going to quickly touch upon those points and move on to my day one. So the first thing is euros. Assuming that you will have an international credit or debit card, it's better to carry some euros on you. Maybe for a week, you could probably carry 150 to 200 euros per head. Again, this is assuming you will be using your card most of the time. Also, try not to withdraw money from the ATMs there, because the exchange rate can be really, really high and you'll be incurring some damage to your wallet. Point number two is seasons. So which is the best season to visit Paris in? For Paris, I guess pretty much any season is the peak season. However, a lot of tourists seem to prefer summer. As for me, my husband and I, we chose to go in the shoulder season, just after summer and just before autumn, sort of that shoulder season, and it was fun. Sometimes rains were expected, but hey, rains can also be romantic in Paris. So it's really up to you. If you want longer days, then you can still choose summer, but there'll be a lot more crowd perhaps. And of course, Parisian Christmas is also very popular.